Brian, did you want to speak at all after? Briefly? Okay.
Alex, you're on YouTube? Alex? I think so. Okay, I'll confirm this. We are live.
Thank you. Welcome to the...
Recording in progress.
Welcome again. Welcome to the Chatham Township Committee meeting of September 24th, 2024. Adequate notice has been given. We were in executive session. Our clerk has confirmed that adequate notice was given. And we will now stand for the flag salute. Please join me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first order of business, we have a proclamation on the agenda. I want to thank Ann McCormick of the Board of Health for bringing this to our attention. It's Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month, and whatever we could do to help our residents to take care of themselves and to be aware and educated, I think is so valuable, especially for something like this. So thank you for bringing this to our attention. Whereas ovarian cancer is the 5th leading cause of cancer deaths of women in the United States and causes more deaths than any other gynecologic cancer, and whereas almost 22,000 women are diagnosed with ovarian cancer in the United States every year, and about 14,000 lose their lives, including 590 new cases and 340 deaths in New Jersey, with over 230,000 families living with ovarian cancer today. And whereas in the United States, a woman's lifetime risk of being diagnosed with ovarian cancer is about 1 in 78. And whereas the 5-year survival rate for ovarian cancer is 50%, and survival rates vary greatly depending on the stage of diagnosis. And whereas ovarian cancer is called a silent killer because its symptoms are often vague or subtle. And whereas there is not currently an effective diagnostic tool for screening and early detection does not exist. And whereas on this day, we encourage all residents to learn more about the subtle signs, symptoms, and current treatment options available to women who identify and overcome this disease. Now, therefore, I, Stacy Ewald, Mayor of the Township of Chatham, along with the Township Committee, do hereby proclaim September 2024 as Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month in the Township of Chatham and encourage all to wear a teal ribbon in support of those individuals who may be battling the disease. Thank you. And if you wanted to say a couple words, and then I'll give you the proclamation.
Okay. I just want to thank the Township Committee for this proclamation. Taking the time to do so is very important because there isn't a nationally mandated educational campaign for this disease, even though it's one of the most deadliest of cancers. So it's really important that these proclamations get made so that there is awareness out there, and it's great to see that the Township supports its citizens and awareness, especially of deadly women's health diseases. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you mind taking photos? Put the other push it out as well. Does the committee want to come down? Push it out and hopefully it just creates more awareness.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your work on the board.
Oh, thank you.
See, when we get it in person, I'll send you a link of the initial.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. we're going to open our first hearing of citizens. Mr. LeConte, can you read the guidance, please?
Members of the public are now welcome to come up to the microphone to address the Township Committee. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues which are not topics scheduled for public hearings tonight. Those present may step up to the microphone to be heard. If you're watching via Zoom, you may speak during any of the public comment sessions by following the Zoom instructions to raise your hand. Whether in person or online, when you're recognized to speak, please mind the following procedures. Please say your name, spell your last name, and give the name of your street. You do not need to give your street number. All public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Rather than use any of your time answering questions, the Township Committee will wait until you finish speaking before responding. There are 2 public comment sessions on tonight's agenda. Each member of the public will be limited to 1 comment of up to 3 minutes during each public comment period. Written comments submitted to the Township Clerk before 3 p.m. today will be read during the public comment sessions. Written comments are subject to the same guidelines as oral comments. Duplicative written comments may be summarized rather than read in full, according to guidelines issued by the New Jersey Division of Local Government Services. And I did not receive any written comments by 3 p.m. for our hearings of citizens tonight.
Thank you. Do we have anybody on Zoom who would like to speak?
We do not have any raised hands.
Okay. Anybody here who wants to speak? Okay. In that case, I'll close the hearing of citizens and we'll move on to the mayor's message. Residents may have read the recent news that the school district of the Chathams is considering a send-receive agreement with Harding for Harding High School students to attend the Chatham High School. Harding only has a K-8 school district. They currently send their high school children to Madison High School. As part of this negotiation, the Board of Education has asked our Joint Recreation Committee to consider whether they'd be able to absorb the Harding K-8 students in our Joint Rec program. The Board of Education and Joint Recreation both held meetings last week where this request was discussed. I understand there were a lot of comments at the Joint Rec meeting regarding the potential Harding-Chathams send-receive agreement. The Township and Borough do not have jurisdiction over the school district. The decision is solely theirs. Likewise, our Joint Recreation program does not have any say in the school district decision. Their objective is solely to determine how, if at all, they can accommodate the Harding K-8 children into our Chatham sports program, and to make a recommendation to the Township and to the Borough based on their assessment. The final decision on incorporating the Harding students into our sports program will be made by the municipalities. We expect these discussions to take place over the next couple of months. I want to thank the Joint Recreation Committee and their chair, Tom, for their work in general to make our sports programs wonderful, but also thank them for their efforts in reviewing the feasibility of incorporating the Harding K-8 students into our sports programs. I wanted to just highlight a couple of items on the agenda this evening. We have a public hearing tonight for an ordinance to amend the construction on holiday ordinance. This was intended as a small change to include the federal and state holiday of Juneteenth, but there was a suggestion to include additional changes to prohibit construction that occurs on weekends and holidays on the interior of a property. Whether to expand the scope of this amendment at this time will be discussed, and if needed, an additional hearing will be put on the schedule so residents can comment. We also have an introduction of an ordinance related to establishing an overlay zone on a portion of the Ferber Farm. This property was purchased by PSC&G for staging for their monopole installation project. It's the property that's behind the Green Village Fire Department. Now that the work is largely done, PSC&G will turn over the bulk of the property to the Great Swamp Wildlife Refuge. 3 acres of the property will be given to the Great Swamp Watershed Association for their headquarters. This overlay zone will help provide some structure with respect to the use of that property. Our events committee is busy planning for our fall festival, which is scheduled for October 26th at Castle Park. The fall festival will follow our Environmental Commission's work day. For families looking for a day of service activity, it'll be a great opportunity to care for our parks and fields, followed by a lot of family and fun, so save the date. And I think that's everything that I have for that now. So we'll switch to the committee reports. Committeeman Lois.
So for utilities, residents may have seen some notices about this, but the most recent and good news is that PSE&G has requested from the BPU a rate reduction, and that is predicted to be about a 4% average monthly bill savings starting October 1st for residents, which is pretty amazing. And the bad news is that JCP&L and New Jersey American Water have both increased over the past few months, and so the average increase is between 8 and 9% for JCP&L, that would be electricity, and New Jersey American Water is up 6 to 7%. These rates and costs are driven by the size of your meter. In the case of New Jersey American Water, the number I quoted here is based on a 5/8 inch meter. Residents have up to 1 inch, sometimes 1 1/4 inch meters. So it's not. I'm not able to tell you uniformly or a blanket statement as to how much rates have increased. So you may see a variation in your bill that's less or more than these rates. But those are good averages put out for the BPU's purposes. And then for recreation, I actually have a question just about that, about the Harding situation, which is, it's my understanding that because we have a club model, that we are currently accepting out-of-town residents. So there are New Providence people playing, kids playing on our sports teams. They are playing on our recreation fields, and it's entirely possible that there's Harding residents. So I'm just a little unclear as to what the actual request is here.
The response I received initially was that it's Chatham only, that decision was vetted many times with respect to the private schools in town and some of the kids that are from outside of the Chathams that go to the private schools, and that it was a Chatham only decision from way back when. That was the response I had received. So,
but the individual clubs are the ones who sign players up, so they could accept.
Either way, the individual clubs will come back. So it could be that you'll get 5 clubs that say they have capacity and they could take them, and there could be 3 others that say they don't have capacity and they can't take them.
Okay.
And that's a possibility. And we can pursue it that way also.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's just a rec question. Thanks for entertaining that. I appreciate it. I do think, though, that that's something that's been under-reflected, like in the request, the request from the school board to the towns. I don't think citizens are necessarily aware that currently, as we speak, there are out-of-town residents, out-of-town players on the sports teams. I know specifically baseball is a large program. It does pretty well, and out-of-town residents do play for the club. Thank you.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll find out a little bit more, because when it came to our joint rec programs, and I don't know if there's a distinction in terms of the club versus the $15 that's paid into joint rec and what that means, I'm not sure. But the original response that I had received, and a lot of the information said only Chatham students. So, yeah, well, like I said, each club is going to be able to evaluate that and give their input. Okay, Committeeman McHugh.
Okay, welcome back everybody in fall. We got a lot going on, for sure. Let's start with the Environmental Commission. There is some good news, and that is we were awarded the bronze level for Sustainable Jersey. And so congratulations to the efforts of the EC on that, and continue to utilize the benefits that brings. We co-hosted and attended the Sustainability Fair, co-hosted with the borough. There was well attended, certainly, lots of great exhibits. Hopefully you got to enjoy some of that over last Saturday. There will be the fall Tri-Town Yard Sale, and that is on October 19th, rain date of the 20th. So you can sign up at the Great Swamp Watershed website. There is a educational program hosted by the Environmental Commission on October 19th at 7 o'clock. That'll be held at the Library of the Chathams. It's really a lot about mosquito management with the Morris County Mosquito Commission, so it should be quite interesting to keep the little buggers from biting. Mentioned again, the Adopt a Drain program is still running and will continue to run and flow, I should say. And we're still looking for a lot of drains to be covered. So get out there and adopt your drain so we keep the water water running. There is mark your calendars, we have a cleanup and work day for the Shunpike Restoration Project. That's going to be on October 26th from 8:30 to 10 in the morning. Everyone is welcome to participate to make it a nicer under the trees area. And so please come out and join. And there may or may not be, to try to bring more of us out, a tree giveaway at that time. It's under process to try to get that organized on the same day, same place, same time, and channel. Moving over to the library, a couple programs here we'd like to mention. The library will be hosting a pair of workshops focused on teens and their use of screens and social media. That will be on Wednesday, September 25th. So you got a lot of time to get ready, because that's tomorrow. But please be aware of it. One workshop is geared toward parents and caregivers. It has an emphasis on how to keep the children safe while also encouraging healthy social media use. The second workshop is intended for middle and high school students, and it will focus on how social media affects teens' mental health in both positive and negative ways. In addition, the workshop will provide strategies and resources so teens learn how to avoid media misuse. Okay. Also, the library will be holding children's chess workshops for a variety of ability levels. These weekly sessions are extremely popular, and students learn game strategy, basic checkmates, tactical patterns for the chessboards. A real great mind stimulation for sure. And finally, on October 12th, the library will be hosting Diwali, which is, for those who are not aware, Festival of Lights. It will highlight some of the traditions associated with this festival, including music, dancing, and stories. And on the Open Space Committee has no report for today, but we will be meeting again at the end of October. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank all the volunteers who are working on all these different activities, but especially our environmental commission on getting the Sustainable Jersey bronze level, because I know that took a lot of work. So thank you to their chair, Jessica Romeo, and to the committee for all their work on securing that bronze level. Committee woman, why is your last name eluding me? Roland.
Who is that woman?
It's
at
been
the
a
end?
while since
The Historical Society, as usual, is open the first Sunday of the month. They've gotten some new donations. It's wonderful that people from town, find things in their homes, or if they're moving or going through things, they donate some amazing items. So there's always a change of things at the museum if you want to stop by. It's usually open between 2 and 4. On October 20th, there will be a presentation at the library called Flexible Flyers and Other Great Sleds as well. ShopRite held an event for Hunger Action Month, because September is Hunger Action Month. So there are still needs in the community. So if you're able to donate to the food pantry, please do so. You can make donations at the Chatham Methodist Church in the back by the door, not at the pantry anymore. And then in terms of public safety and the Board of Health, there's been a lot of concern about e-bikes and safety around town, in terms of some of the speeds that the bikes can get up to, wearing of helmets, riding on sidewalks, and safety on the road, especially in intersections and coming around corners. And I know that the police department has been speaking with students and speaking with e-bike riders. I believe that certain bikes that are able to reach speeds over a certain mile per hour, I believe it's 25 or over, they're requiring those bikes to be registered. So if you haven't had any interaction yet with the police department or anyone related to public safety, you may, because they're actively trying to educate the riders and the kids around town, because it's really a safety issue.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mary Wald. As the mayor had shared with you earlier, the Board of Education had spent a portion of their agenda discussing the consideration of a send and receive arrangement with Harding. I would encourage you, to the extent that the matter is of interest to you or importance to you, to review the video from the most recent Board of Education meeting from September 16th. My understanding is that no decision has been made. Discussions are ongoing. And again, feel free to reach out to the township representatives on the Board of Education should you desire to get some questions answered and your opinions known. On the matter of recreation, the Joint Rec Advisory Committee had met the following day on Tuesday to discuss the possibility of the inclusion of Harding students into the programs. The marching orders to the clubs was to take an evaluation of their specific programs and come back to the advisory committee with their questions and also inclination on whether or not they might be able to accommodate. If not, to let us know, as well as if they could, if there are any conditions that would be attached to that yes response. Again, if you have any questions, we do have township representatives on the board. I would encourage you to reach out to them, and certainly myself, happy to chat with anybody to the extent they care to understand a little bit more of the ongoings on that particular matter. What I can share with you, for Chatham, we've got over 5,100 registrants in, I think, 17 recreational and sports activities, so it's a robust program. The inclusion of Harding would be a number of something like 300 or 400, representing something like 7-8% from the total registrants that we have today. So those are just a few numbers for you to chew on. And that would be it, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay.
Mayor, if you will, just on the e-bike thing that Committeewoman Rowland reported on, I know the fire departments have also expressed concern about the e-bikes and scooters and anything with a large battery, especially in multifamily. And we have communities coming online and also communities now, where someone who doesn't have, let's say, a UL listed battery could potentially cause a fire that would impact a lot of people, and that might be something that we might take up in a workshop.
Do they have recommended ordinance changes that we're proposing?
Nothing specific, but there are models that we could look at from urban areas like New York City, but also Jersey City, where they have been taking these type of regulations up. Because, and specifically, they have had a number of fires in those municipalities.
Yeah. Mr. Shoddy, could you reach out, would you mind reaching out to the fire department chiefs and just finding out, get an idea of their concerns and if they have suggestions, in terms of what they've seen in other towns and what they're recommending? Okay, thank you. Okay. So we're going to have the public hearing for ordinance 2024-17, construction on Sundays and holidays. As I mentioned earlier, and Ms. Gaffoni, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to open up the public hearing, but this right now, as written, is really just to incorporate the Juneteenth holiday. There were no other changes to the version that's here in the agenda, correct? Because that was what was introduced.
There's no other revisions to what you have before you, but there are changes to what was introduced,
Okay,
if I'm clear on that. So-
yes.
Yeah.
So that ordinance, there was a request by a member of the public at the last meeting that we include indoor work.
Okay,
The ordinance that you have tonight, that is on the agenda for consideration for public hearing and adoption is the original. However, you have the option to, the attorneys provided an amended ordinance. That would have to be, you can make a motion to amend that ordinance that you have today. And then it would have to go and be re-advertised, and so we would have another adoption for that. But that's all dependent on whether you want to amend it to include the indoor work.
got it.
Correct.
And so, because that is a substantive change, you can't adopt that tonight.
Okay. But the version that was introduced and that's before us right now for the public hearing, is a version that just had Juneteenth in it.
Correct.
Got it.
I understand the question now. Yes, correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you. Okay, so I will open the public hearing on that ordinance.
There are not any hands raised.
Okay. And I don't see anybody charging us at the door. Okay, I'll close the public hearing. So I guess I would ask the committee if anybody, here's how this is gonna work. Either you make a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance that's before us, or you make a motion, well, I don't know that we could adopt the amended ordinance.
Mayor?
Why don't we,
Mayor?
yes,
So the copy that's in your packet assumes the amendment. So what you have physical copies of is the, so if there's a motion to adopt, it'll be the version from the last meeting where you're just doing the Juneteenth. Whereas if there's a motion to amend, it would be this physical copy that's in all of your packets that would include the, having it apply to the indoor construction as well, or indoor work by contractors.
okay. Why don't I propose we make life easier and just take them separately, if anybody listens. Why don't we just focus on the ordinance that's before us, which is the ordinance to adopt, and then at the next meeting, we could put on the discussion as to whether or not, because the discussion on whether or not we have indoor, it just raises some other questions, and it just complicates something that should be fairly straightforward. So why don't we do that, unless, well, do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 2024-17 as written?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. Okay, can I get a vote, please?
Mr. Lois?
Yes.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Troy?
Yes.
And Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
Motion passes, so I'll print out for you the copy, the ordinance as now adopted.
Great, thank you. And then if we could put on the next workshop agenda, the discussion about adding some indoor component. Thank you. Okay, the next ordinance up for public hearing, 2024-18, which is Parks and Fields Rules and Regulations. Why don't we open the public hearing first?
No hands raised for this one either.
Thank you. And I know there were no emails sent in before 3 o'clock, but I did see something that popped up at like 7, and I'm not sure we can, let me just see if I could find that.
Although it wasn't sent on time, I can pull it up and read it into the record if you want.
Sure.
Okay, this one comes from Tom Evans of Birch Hill Drive. He says, to the Township Committee and Administrators, I'd like to request a clarification to your new park ordinance as follows. Section 20-3.2, prohibited uses, rules of conduct on any land, park, playground improvements, and equipment owned by the Township of Chatham, used for active and passive recreation activities. No person shall, and then letter E is play or practice golfing unless such facility is specifically designated for such activity. And Mr. Evans asks, could someone please tell me where the practice golf area is designated? I know I've used the parks ever since the 1970s, off the actual playing fields, with plastic practice wiffle balls without any prohibitions. I've asked several people for some clarification ever since your ordinance was introduced. No one seems to know the answer. Perhaps you could clarify this during tonight's meeting. I'm also curious when you actually closed Esternay Field to the public. Its reopening would be welcome. A padlocked gate barring the entrance certainly does not suggest it's open. Thank you.
Okay. So there's a question, the golf question. Practice golf area is designated. I've used the parks ever since the 70s. I'm not aware, I mean, this ordinance specifically says no golfing outside of specifically designated, oh, so I guess there's some thought that there was a designated area within our parks? I'm not, has anybody ever heard of
I
it?
think it allows for a designated golfing area. It doesn't say there is. I don't know if there is a place in the municipality that is designated.
There isn't, to my knowledge, there isn't one, but, yeah, to my knowledge, there is not one, but the way it's written is so that way, maybe in the future, you decide to designate an area or,
Okay.
you know, create a section on something that's existing or a new parkland, you can do that, but, you know, the issue of, I know this gentleman has never asked me, he says he's asked several people, but he never asked me, this is the first time I'm hearing of this, but wiffle bowls are not the same as a golf ball. You know, the issue with golf balls is safety, you know, is if there's people there, but also for lawnmowers, for, you know, tripping and slip hazards, you know, not every golf ball is easily retrieved. So, you know, you hit it out and you don't know where it is. So it's more of a safety issue where we've got baseball, football, and
Yeah.
other issues. So that's why it's included in here. If the governing body, at some point, we want to designate an area, certainly do that. Maybe the Fensky, the new Fensky land, we can certainly create a little driving, driving range or a little putting area over there. I don't know. But right now, within our current parks, we don't have a designated area for that.
Okay, thank you. And then when we actually closed Estrenay Field to the public, its reopening would also be, I mean, as long as I remember that, it's been not as easy to access, if you will. But, do we have an answer to that question? I'm not aware that, it's open to the public, it's just not open to cars all the time.
Correct, yeah. Offhand, I don't know the answer. I could certainly ask our Chief and Public Works Director, see if they know, kind of ask internally. But to clarify, is it's not closed to the public. It's, that path is closed to vehicular access.
Yeah.
There's still, you know, parking outside the gate, and it's open. We could certainly put a big sign that says open during these hours to clarify for people, so they don't get the idea that they can't use it.
Okay. Yeah, that might be a good idea. And the reason that cars don't have access is for safety reasons, because it's all enclosed, and the police just, my understanding was the police were not comfortable that they can maintain safety in that area. And that's why there wasn't vehicle access.
That's my
Yeah.
understanding, and so I think the rec committee, had indicated at the last meeting, they want to follow up on this, for discussion, so we can put back as
Yeah. I wonder if there's some, like, you know, if we think of down the road, some way to just kind of limit, when we don't want full access with cars, maybe a limited area with cars, so that residents, you know, if they want to take their kids down to practice soccer or something, there's a couple of spots available to them, but we don't have to worry about some of the safety issues of,
But they can do that,
Mention.
I mean, they just,
yeah, they park right by the
they
gate.
park by the gate.
Yeah.
I do see people do that. It's no different than people parking in a parking lot at Nash and then walking over to the field, or parking in the parking lot and walking down to the fields. It's probably a shorter distance to walk from where the gate is down there.
Okay. Thank you.
We could certainly review that.
Okay.
Mayor, this ordinance also had a amendment that our attorney had advised for, it was a clarification based on the discussion at our prior meeting.
Yeah, this is a revised version from what was introduced. Again, a member of the public at the last meeting had mentioned vaping to be included in the smoking definition, the smoking prohibition. And so we made a minor clarification in the ordinance to refer back to another part of the code that defines smoking, which does include vaping. So this is not substantive, but I would recommend that the committee first vote on the revision, and then you can vote to adopt tonight, because it's not substantive. You can do both votes tonight.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may, just a couple things. One minor thing in the title, it references skate park, which can be stricken. And I did want to explore, make sure I understand it correctly, item C is in Charlie, which addresses animals on the subject areas in the township. And it does reference the restriction of any pet in any active public play area, apparatus area, athletic field or recreational enclosure or building, unless said pet is participating in the township. So is that to say, for example, a resident, even with his or her pet on a 6-foot or shorter leash, would be prohibited from bringing their pet to a soccer game. I thought the phrasing of pet is participating in township program didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
So that is like, let's say you're doing a dog in the park, kind of a, you know, bring your dog festival, that, you know, some towns do things like that, like a dog parade or.
Woofstock.
Something like a wolf stock, things like that, so that's what that's referencing, unless the pet is participating in township program. Or
Okay.
maybe you have a mascot, you know, some towns are bulldogs and they, you know, they bring a bulldog as a mascot, something like that. But just so I'm clear on your question, is whether there's a game, somebody can bring their pet while on the leash that's 6 feet or under to the game.
Yes.
So the way it reads is, they just can't be in the play area. You know, you don't want dogs running on the soccer field or on our turf fields, or, you know, so as long as it's not the active play area, not on the playground, which we talked about last time, the field or recreational enclosure. So the perimeter, I would think, is permitted. You know, if there's bleachers on the outside, I think that would also be permitted. But I think it would restrict them from all those other circumstances.
I agree.
Okay.
And the animal control ordinance already requires that dog owners have their dogs leashed when they leave their own property. So insofar as this makes any change to our code, it's setting the limit of, you know, no longer than 6 feet for the leash. It can't be one of those retractable ones that extends to however long they extend to.
Before we move into further discussion, I don't think I closed the public hearing, so do we have anybody else who's?
No, we don't have any
Okay,
answers.
I'm gonna close the public hearing. So, because I gather there might be discussion and there might be edits, so,
Well, the other one is on the title. The title of the ordinance is saying that it's amending the existing title. So the existing title is, the way it's written is tennis courts. That's just saying that we're amending the existing title. And then later on, it clarifies, so 20-3, which says skate park, you know, blah, 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 that's amending it with a new title.
That was gonna be my comment.
okay,
So that does address that,
so that's covered.
yes.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the revisions? The revisions that were made from the last version that we had, which is the fact that the
clarification on
smoking
vaping.
references back to
The
the
vaping.
ordinance that includes vaping.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, can we get a vote?
Mr.
I have a discussion, item. Just on, back to E, which Mr. Evans asked about, just, I do know of residents who do practice golf, the wiffle golf, right? So they use the little practice balls, and I'm wondering if there's a way that we can incorporate that to continue to allow residents to use, wiffle balls to practice on the fields. I know the pocket parks in particular, like the one in the Gates neighborhood, I know a gentleman who goes out there regularly to practice with the wiffle and also putting, which may not be safe because that requires restraint, but of, you know, whoever's striking the ball, and there is the issue with the mowers. But as far as the wiffle goes, I would imagine there's a way we can incorporate that in here. I mean, with the simple revision, player practice, golfing, you know, yeah.
I guess my only question is divots an issue? 'Cause, you know, I play golf and sometimes there's some divots involved. So if you're, you know, if you get a bad slice, then there's pieces coming out, does that impact the mowing or, I don't know. Is it-
Yeah.
Probably not the mowing, but more so.
But just like if someone trips,
Yeah.
right, and the upkeep of
I
it or.
think part of the spirit to this is to provide some protection to, for example, the baseball fields, which are
Correct.
immaculately maintained and massive resources are invested in those
Right.
fields. And to the extent that I'm familiar with golf, and I used to be before I had children, it's not so much the ball you're hitting, it's, you know, so what you're perfecting is striking the ground in the proper way in order to have good contact with the ball, whether it's a wiffle ball or golf ball. So a concern ultimately is that when you're practicing golf swings on, say, again, this baseball field, you're invariably creating some damage to the grass.
Yeah, so maybe, I mean, I think we can, my suggestion, is move ahead with this, and maybe we clarify E where it says, you know, player practice golfing, sort of like we did with, you know, the pets and all that, where we talk about public play area, apparatus area, athletic field, recreative, we restrict golf altogether in those areas because of the damage potentially, but we can allow that in just open parks with a wiffle ball. That's just a suggestion, I think, trying to address the concern. So if like you're in a pocket park, you know, just kind of open grass area. I don't want to. Yeah, so if you're in just a public park, pocket park where there's just, you know, open space, as long as you're there, not necessarily soccer field, football field, baseball field, you know, areas where there could be organized games, then create tripping hazard for kids who are playing there, and, you know, the residual wiffle balls or golf balls.
Yeah, I think it's a fair accommodation, yeah, because it ultimately is protecting athletic fields, right? Where consistency in the turf or grass is, and level ground is important.
Is that, oh.
So is that a significant enough amendment that it would need to be reintroduced?
Well, would that be an amendment to the ordinance, or would we just administratively designate the pocket parks as an area designated for golf practice with a wiffle ball?
I think we would amend the ordinance.
Yeah.
Because I think the purpose here is to have all the rules kind of spelled out and clear. So I think it should be an amendment to the ordinance, permit golf practice with wiffle ball, except on athletic fields, right?
yeah, we'll work on the language, but it's sort of like the dog one, where we
Yeah.
we talk about like,
Active playing
active play
area.
area, essentially, so we'll take the wording from the section on dogs and use that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I guess it's I don't think it's a significant change. If the committee is comfortable, adopting with this revision without having the wording in front of you, then that's fine. Or if you want to carry it so that you can have the exact wording in front of you, it's up to you.
I mean, I don't think we're in a rush. I think I would just suggest we carry it, and so we have the wording in front of us.
Because something we could probably do is have that proposed language at the workshop meeting and amend it
Okay.
there.
That's a good idea.
I appreciate that. And Mr. Choi and I have had some limited conversation about this and Esternay, but this will give us time to digest that a little more fully, too.
Okay. So did we make any motions?
Well, there was an initial motion to make the amendment for the clarification, but if we're going to,
Carry it.
if we're going to further amend it potentially at the workshop, then we can table that motion, and then we've had the public hearing as advertised, so we can delay further action to a future meeting.
Okay, so we don't have
so-
have
so-
to have a formal withdrawal of the.
So I'll move that we table 2024-18 for a future meeting.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
And do we need a vote to?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is to table to a future meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi,
Yes.
and Mayor Ewald.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Okay, and we're moving on to 2024-19, introduction of ordinance zoning overlay. Mr. Shahadi, do you want to provide some?
Sure. Let me just, give me 1 second, I'm sorry, to pull it up so I can.
I'm wondering if I should have Deputy Mayor Choi, because he and I are on the planning board, so we can give, but he worked on kind of the structure of what it looks like. This is the Ferber form.
Yes, so it's a parcel in the township, which was at one point owned by utility company PSE&G. And the anticipation was that particular parcel wasn't going to be used for a staging area as part of work that was contemplated in the general area. That did not occur. So the future use for that parcel by the utility was severely reduced. They ultimately contemplated granting the township the land, and it is currently zoned for R1. In part and parcel with that activity, the watershed was desirous of running programs on that particular parcel. The current zoning restricted such a use, and so and I kind of said this the last meeting, I think an exemplary case of where multiple departments in municipal government looked ahead and coordinated to make to affect this overlay zoning is so I commend everyone sort of involved in this. The overlay permits, without undue burden on the watershed, to conduct such activities, to do so without having to go through an arduous process before the zoning board, for example, given that it would theoretically now be a permitted use going forward. So the overlay would specifically identifies the uses and restrictions and conditions for such uses within this specific overlay area. The R1 restrictions and limitations and specifications are preserved, and this is just on top of what's already permitted in R1. R1 consequently remains as is. It is untouched throughout the township. This provides some flexibility with regard to a specific parcel here in the township. It is a welcome initiative. It's environmentally focused. It's for children, for youth in the community, and much broader than their community. So I think it was excellent and prudent decision to structure it in this manner to allow for an expedient process for the Great Swamp watershed and an enhancement of the land within the township. I think that about covers it.
Considering I put you on the spot at the last minute, that was great.
If there's anything to add, please do so.
Yeah, I'll just add, with regard to specifics, this overlay is specific to, an environmental stewardship organization. So the uses are only permitted by an organization that fits within that definition, and it's defined in the ordinance. So it's not a use that could be, implemented by just anyone or any organization. So that's really the limiting factor here. And you can see in the ordinance, the office building, indoor storage, water quality laboratory, adult and family programs, all of them have to be by this environmental stewardship organization. And then there's lot area and all of those. And so a property owner just within these 3 lots could choose to use the property in accordance with R1 or in accordance with the overlay.
Great, thank you. And just to add to that, this was devised through discussions with the Great Swamp watershed and with the residents in the community, because for the residents, it's a benefit because then they understand what the parameters are. They know how that business will be operating. And for the Great Swamp watershed, it's great for them because they're not going to the zoning board every time they want to do something. So that's kind of how the whole thing came about. So that's the background information, and I will look for a motion to introduce ordinance 2024-19.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Wonderful. Can we get a vote, please?
Mr. Lois?
Yes.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi?
Yes.
Mayor Ewell?
Yes.
Motion passes, and because we have to send this back to the planning board for master plan consistency review, which is a 35-day window, the public hearing will be at the November 12th meeting.
Thank you. Okay, and next voting on our agenda, the consent agenda. Did anybody want anything pulled out from the consent agenda for discussion?
I would like 8 and 10, if I may. Resolution 2024-190 and Resolution 2024-191. 192.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda with those two resolutions removed?
So moved?
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi,
Yes.
and Mayor Ewald.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, did you want to take both of those together, or you want?
Yeah, because it is actually the same, precisely the same exact matter.
Okay,
So I can take either one, either the municipal services reimbursement agreement. They both have the same language, and it pertains to the manner in which the reimbursement amount is calculated by the township and those monies are going to be reimbursed to the association in question. The calculation is as such. It's a calculation of the number of dwellings in the association multiplied by the annual cost per unit for the township, or the amount actually expended or contracted by the association for such services rendered, and it is the lesser of the two. I think just a little bit of, I'm wondering as I ponder this on and on again, if it makes sense to tighten the language a bit. So that is to say, for sub-article A, to read a number of occupied dwelling units. And so as I think about this, in the event we have an association where, let's say it's 100 units, and for reasons, hypothetical reasons, only 10 of the units are occupied, we could theoretically continue paying for services that actually aren't rendered, and required to pay those monies in connection with those services. Now, it's an extreme example, but it's actually only in the extreme examples where this would be potentially material.
And that, I guess, would only apply for recycling, as I'm looking at it, and rightfully so, because that's a dwelling, you're not gonna have recycling for any of the units that are not occupied.
That's correct, right.
It's up to the committee, but I don't have an objection to proposing that change to the condo associations.
It'd just be a little tricky depending on, how to.
I don't know how we'd enforce or calculate it.
Fair enough, but at least it's a little bit of a stronger leg to stand on. Now, so it really is, it really is being overly detailed in some respects, but there's no harm in making sure that we have
absolutely.
full leverage in the event of, less than desirable situations the township finds itself in.
Yeah, I'm just thinking in the case of, let's say, Enclave, I mean, those are, they're purchased, they're homes. So in that case,
Yeah. It would be if they're not sold,
yeah, I'm
unsold
just
unit.
trying to think, like, if it's,
I'm not sure how that works.
someone owns it, someone's gonna almost always own it, are they occupying it? And so we get into how do you verify the occupancy, and let's say it's partially occupied maybe the first 3 months and then the rest of the year, or maybe there's a gap in a couple months where,
Yeah, I agree.
it's not occupied, somebody moved out by the time somebody moves in, so I'm just trying to think practically how to.
But
Yeah, it wouldn't be on the margin. As I said, it would be only extreme, so.
But Mr. Choi, even legally though, I mean, what, if a home here is not occupied for 7 or 8 months and they're using less services from, it's not really different, if an individual home would be occupied. So, I mean, I'm not saying that applies directly here, but I think the best use case for your suggestion is for new developments that are not yet occupied, and they're going through a sales process, and then are we reimbursing for the whole year for a association that's only open for 2 months, let's say it's not fully sold out, or in the most egregious sense, like something where it's not in our town now, but it could be like what's happened in the Ivy, where they have a rental, it's low, utilization is not that great, and then you end up with an enormous number of units that are unoccupied. That absolutely could happen.
Yeah, I would agree with both those scenarios, and as I said, this is a situation that would only be meaningful on the margin in the extreme, right? But that would be the case where it does matter.
So then maybe it would be language would be something like that of sponsorship from a condominium association like if you've ever been part of a condominium association, the sponsor has all the units. Like until those units have all been sold, right? Until all those shares are divided, we don't even participate at all.
Well, just so we're clear, this is specific to Melrose and to the Enclave, which are,
Right.
yeah. So
Yeah, they are
right
fully
now-
sold. Yeah, that is.
I was questioning, like, I don't know, I agree it's a nice provision, it's a safe provision, but I don't know.
It may not be applicable for these two, maybe it's more applicable for us going forward. Certainly, maybe you're right,
But we don't do it with, like, even with the enclave, we didn't do that until
Right.
HCO, so they would transmit to us that this has now received the CO, it's sold, and then we send the address to the county, because the county does the pickup, and then we add them to the roll, so we're not
Okay.
really, picking up recycling.
Yeah, so so we're not, that's not in the calculation until,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, so it's not
Fair
like
enough.
we're not paying them for the recycling either, we're just adding them to our MUA contract. Let's say Cornerstone, which is old rentals, in that case, we. Greg's, I could feel Greg's eyes at the microphone.
Burning a hole in
Z, you have important things to say we want the residents
Yes.
to hear. I've listened where I'm like, I can't even
Sorry.
say.
I'm projecting into your microphones. Yeah, so, with the ownership ones, once they're CO'd and they're occupied, we transmit that information to the county to add them to the pickup list. But let's say Cornerstone, over there, if the county can't pick up because the placement of the container, whatever it is, we're gonna reimburse them in that situation because the county can't pick it up. So we would add units as they're added if the development permits for the county MUA to pick up from there, otherwise we reimburse. But in that case, it would be for the whole complex in the case of a dumpster.
So
Okay.
what if we just added the language with certificate of occupancy, because then it would cover also a
Yes.
fire for Melrose or something that would take units offline, if they were offline for
For fire hydrants? Oh, I'm sorry.
if there was a fire which
Oh,
prevented
if there was a
occupancy,
fire, I'm sorry.
something like that, or Mr. Choi's other extreme example, earthquake, some other act of God, right, that took units offline, then we would only be reimbursing for units with a CO, because at that point, their CO would be rescinded.
What section are you looking at? Just so I'm curious to see what the,
I wanna say it's 3A.
3A, yes.
I mean, I guess we could put number of dwelling units. Ooh, thank you. I guess we could put number of dwelling units with a current CO.
Yeah, I think for these two developments, I think I've heard everyone's comments and I'm fine with it. I think at the end of the day, for these two particular developments, I think the risk management there is fine. But I would say going forward, I'm just being mindful of the
Yes.
language and these things and mindful of taxpayer monies that may be at risk, which may not otherwise have to be, so.
Yeah, I agree for when they're first, being sold or leasing, that's definitely something we need to keep in mind. These agreements tend not to come into play until after all of them have been occupied, to be honest. But, in the case anyone's on top of it early on in the process, we'll keep that provision.
okay? Can I get a vote, please?
We still need a motion in a
Oh,
second.
we need a motion? Okay. Can we have a motion to approve resolutions 2024-190 and 2024-192?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Okay. Can I get a vote, please?
Mr. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi,
Yes.
and Mayor Ewald.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And we'll open the second hearing of citizens. Same rules apply. Anyone on Zoom raising their hands?
We do not have any hands raised.
Okay. In that case, I will close the hearing of citizens, and I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So move?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. That was relatively smooth.